The spaceship Rovaxi Dawn moved quietly through deep space, far from any known human sectors. It was part of a wide patrol mission by the Alliance of Core Species, a group of powerful alien civilizations that ruled most of the galaxy. For years, they had heard rumors about a strange species called humans from the Sol system. Some reports said they were violent, others claimed they were primitive, but no one had proof. No one had ever captured anything useful until now. A small scout vessel brought something back. At first glance, it looked like a piece of human scrap, floating dead in space. It's just metal and rust. But when the engineers opened it, they found a secure black box with blinking lights and encrypted signals. It was heavily protected with rotating code patterns. Its outer shell was scorched, like it had survived a direct energy hit. The device wasn't transmitting. It was storing something. Captain Selvar of the Rovaxi Dawn ordered the artifact brought to the command room. His team of data breakers, including the insectoid slicer Fury and the twin-mind lizard coder Jurenkai, began trying to access it. The box resisted. Firewalls changed shape every minute. Layers upon layers of defense blocked every pathway. It took them 6 days to even open the first segment. When they did, they found files, video files. Everyone assumed it was some propaganda or human communication broadcast. Maybe old media from their strange Earth culture. The file names were cold, military. Combat_LOG_9A. Squad_17_recon_black_mission. Level 6 clearance only. Those who had heard of Earth shivered. The files had no color. No music, no voiceover. Just raw footage. Unedited reel. Captain Selvar ordered the bridge darkened. All side screens were turned off. Only the central display remained. The crew gathered. No one said a word as the first file loaded. It started with silence, a dark sky filled with smoke. The camera was mounted on a soldier's helmet. Red warnings blinked on the side. It was shouting in the distance, muffled. Then the soldier walked forward, calm, steady steps toward a burning structure. Bodies of strange alien creatures lay on the ground. Big creatures, larger than the human. Some were still moving, barely alive, bleeding thick purple blood. The human didn't stop. He walked past them, shotgun in hand. His breathing was calm. His voice, when he finally spoke, was cold. Sector clear. Moving to Phase 2, that's when the first alien screamed. It came from behind a wall. Huge beast, 10 feet tall, made of armored plates, jumped at the human from the shadows. The crew on the Rovaxi Dawn flinched. Their standards. It had 2 heads, plasma claws, and metal teeth. But the human didn't panic. He ducked under the swing, planted a mine on the creature's chest, rolled away, and pulled the trigger. A bright flash, then smoke. When the screen cleared, the human was already walking forward again. Reloading. Captain Selvar stared at the screen, unmoving. Fiddy clicked her mandibles in confusion. Jurenkai whispered, "Is this a simulation?" "No," Selvar said. "Too much detail, too much fear." They watched for 20 more minutes. The human soldier cleared a village, fought off a pack of shadowhounds, and rescued a wounded teammate. To inject the man with something that made him scream and run straight into enemy fire with a grenade. It was all real. Surreal. After the footage ended, no one moved. Even the ship's AI refused to speak. Then the second file, auto-loaded. This one was different. A different soldier. She was younger, her armor marked with a strange symbol, a black skull inside a red triangle. The crew had never seen such a unit. Her mission was infiltration. The camera was darker, quieter. She moved through tunnels, slicing into security doors, dropping enemies without a sound. One moment, she cut power to an entire base. The next, she used a knife to dispatch 2 guards without alerting anyone. It was precise, emotionless, cold. But the strange part came at the end. She found something. A wounded alien child, crying. The woman stood over it. The crew on the Rovaxi Dawn held their breath. Would she kill the child? She looked down, paused, then picked it up gently and wrapped it in her cloak. Shh. She spoke not to the child, but to herself. Not all enemies are enemies. Not all children grow into monsters. Captain Selvar leaned forward. Compassion? Jurenkai nodded slowly. Yes, but not weakness. The third file was locked. It required a higher clearance. Tiri bypassed it, but she hesitated before. Playing it, Captain. This is marked level 10. Even Earth officers wouldn't share this freely. Play it, Selvar ordered. The video was corrupted at first, then it stabilized. A man stood in front of a mirror. His face was scarred. His eyes were tired. He spoke into the camera. If you're watching this, then you've found our war archives. You want to understand humans? Don't try. You think we're beasts? Monsters. You're right. But not for the reasons you think. We don't. Fight for glory. We fight because we have no choice. And when we fight, we don't stop. He stared into the lens. We die. Rise. We keep going. You can kill a body. You can break a mind. But you can't scare a human who's already seen the worst. The screen cut to battlefield footage. Soldiers dragging each other through blood and fire. A man blowing up his own position to stop an alien swarm. A woman crawling with a shattered leg, holding a detonator and smiling. There was no music, no flag waving, just pain and determination. When the footage ended, someone in the bridge room was crying. No one laughed. No one spoke. Captain Selvar stood. This changes everything. Jurenkai whispered, Do we report it? Selvar nodded. Must. But we also must warn them. These are not simple creatures. They're forged in fire. We saw only minutes of their past. Imagine what they have prepared for the future. The shadows of the room, the human black box blinked again. New files unlocked, and the next message waited. Not just for the Alliance, for the galaxy. The bridge of the Ravaxi Dawn stayed silent for a long time. After watching the first recordings, no one wanted to speak. The lights were dimmed, the air felt heavier, and even the ship's systems lowered their volume, as if afraid to interrupt. The humans in the footage didn't act like any known species. They were calm when others would panic, cold when others would scream, brutal, but not careless. That kind of control was terrifying. Fiari's claws trembled slightly as she opened. The next file. It was longer than the others, over 2 hours of raw combat footage from a single helmet camera. It had no edits, no signs of staged events. The first frame showed a snowy battlefield. Ice blew across the screen. The human soldier was alone, walking up a hill as bullets flew past. Explosions in the distance lit the sky red. The crew leaned forward as the soldier raised his weapon and spoke softly into his mic, requesting evac. Denied again. All right. I'll finish it. He didn't sound angry or desperate, just tired and determined as the soldier moved through the battlefield. A group of large reptilian warriors, known in Alliance records as the Gorgoth, charged toward him. They were known for size, strength, and berserker rage. Normally, even one of them was enough to crush smaller enemies. There were 10 here. They roared and fired plasma rifles. The human didn't run. He didn't even slow down. He threw smoke grenades, vanished into the white fog, and the screaming began. The crew watched as shapes moved in the mist. Screams of pain, weapons falling, bodies slamming into the snow. Then silence. The fog cleared. The human stood alone, covered in blood that wasn't his. He took one breath, then kept walking forward. One of the younger alien officers in the bridge muttered, "How can he do this alone?" No one answered. The footage continued. The human found an enemy outpost, heavily guarded. He could have retreated, waited for backup. But instead, he started marking targets. One by one, he sniped the guards with perfect aim. If they noticed something wrong, they died before they could warn the others. Once inside, the soldier planted explosives on the power core. Just as the alarms began to sound, he walked out slowly, turned back once, and triggered the blast. The base lit up behind him, turning into a fireball. He didn't celebrate. He didn't even look back. He just said one word into his mic. Done. Fiddy paused the recording. Captain, this isn't normal behavior. Even the most trained Alliance troops would hesitate against such odds. He walked into a slaughter. Captain Salvar stood stiff, his skin a pale shade. Wasn't a slaughter, he said. It was a message. Jurnkai nodded, wanted them to see him, to fear him. Fury resumed the footage. The last part showed something even more shocking. The human was ambushed by an aerial drone, fired 3 plasma bolts directly into his chest. He fell, rolled down a hill, and lay still. For a moment, the screen went dark, then movement. The soldier gasped, choked, and pulled himself upright. Blood poured from his side. Then of calling for help, he grabbed a syringe from his belt and stabbed it into his neck. His body jerked. Violently, heart rate spiked, muscles tensed. He screamed. But then, he stood. The crew watched in horror as the man, barely alive, picked up his weapon, reloaded, and limped back into the battle. His breathing was uneven, steps were heavy, but he moved forward. No one fights like that, one of the bridge techs said. He should be dead. Captain Salvar stared at the screen. He is dead, inside. That's the difference. The screen faded to black, then a message appeared in red letters. This is Class 6 training footage. Level B recruit. End transmission. Fiddy. Read it twice. This wasn't an elite unit. Jurnkai finished her sentence. This was just a basic soldier. Captain Salvar turned to his officers. What kind of world creates a basic soldier like that? Nobody answered. The ship's AI spoke suddenly, breaking the silence. Incoming file automatically unlocked. New file loaded without warning. This time, it wasn't combat footage. It was a security recording taken from inside a human facility. Clean white walls. Soldiers in training gear sitting in rows. A drill sergeant paced in front of them, shouting, "You're not warriors yet. You're dirt with a uniform, you think. You're tough because you passed simulation. Combat doesn't care. You get shot. You move. You lose a leg. You crawl. You get captured. You escape. Or you die trying." One recruit raised a hand. "Sir, what if we can't?" The sergeant stepped close, face full of fury. "Then you're not human." The aliens watching shivered, that kind of pressure. On. Their own people? In training? The recording ended with a group of recruits being dropped into a simulation chamber filled with fire, gunfire, and shockwave grenades. Most screamed and hit the floor. One stayed standing, a girl no older than 20. She walked through the fire, ignoring the pain. Then the screen turned black again. Captain Salvar whispered, "They don't train soldiers. They create weapons." Fiddy turned away. "I don't want to see more." The AI replied coldly, "There are still 132 files remaining." Salvar walked slowly to the center of the room. "We keep watching. If we're going to survive what's coming, we have to understand them." No one said anything. But deep inside, every alien on that ship felt the same thing. Fear. Not of what humans had done, but of what they were still willing to do. The crew of the Rovaxi Dawn no longer gathered around the screen with curiosity. They sat quietly now, as if forced to look at something they didn't want to see. The recordings had changed the mood of the entire ship. Maintenance was delayed. Meals were skipped. Officers whispered instead of speaking normally. It felt like the humans in those videos were still watching them, even though it was the other way around. Fiddy tapped, her claws nervously against the control panel. "Another one unlocked," she said, her voice dry. Captain Salvar gave a silent nod. The screen lit up. The recording began in total darkness. No sound. Just a faint heartbeat. Slow and steady. Then light burst through and the camera came online. It was inside a crushed dropship, partially buried in rock and metal. The human's breathing was sharp, ragged. There was blood in his mouth. His left arm was bent at a wrong angle. He spoke into a broken radio. "This is Unit 7. Hit squad status? Unknown? I'm still alive?" Initiating resurrection protocol. The crew leaned forward. Resurrection? Kai muttered. The human reached into his chest armor, pulled out a black injector, and stabbed it into his thigh. The reaction was immediate. His eyes widened. His veins darkened. Screamed once, then growled like a beast. With his broken arm hanging loose, he tore metal apart with one hand, crawled out of the wreckage, and stood. Outside was a battlefield. Human and alien corpses everywhere. Smoke in the air. His team was gone, dead, or vanished. Any normal soldier would have called for help or hidden, till rescued. But this man didn't hide. He ran straight into enemy fire. The crew watched, frozen. The human had nothing but a rifle and a shattered body, yet he moved with fury, not fear. He fired until his weapon broke. Then he picked up an enemy blade and kept going. The camera caught the moment he was shot again, in the back. He fell forward, and pushed himself up. Alien medics watching on the bridge said nothing. They had no explanation. The human should have collapsed. His heartbeat spiked, then dropped. Then returned stronger. He kept fighting. Is he human? Fiddy whispered. No, one of the officers replied. He's something else. The video finally ended with the man crawling to a cliff's edge. His armor was melting from plasma burns. His left eye was blind. He reached into his gear, pulled out a memory drive, and looked at the camera. If I die here, make sure they see this. Make them understand. He threw the drive off the cliff before falling. Backward into the fire below, the screen turned black. The room stayed silent. Fiddy stood slowly. That was a suicide mission. Captain Selvar corrected her. It was a message. Could speak. The next file loaded automatically. This one had no intro, no battle. Just a dark room and a figure tied to a chair. The timestamp showed it was a war prisoner and alien soldier from a different species. His face was bruised. He was shaking. The human interrogator stepped into view. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. Didn't shout. He simply placed a tablet on the table and pressed play. The screen showed the alien's own unit being torn apart by a human soldier, silent. Then it showed that same alien, running, leaving his squad behind. The interrogator spoke calmly. You left them. They died because of you. The alien broke down crying. The crew watching the footage looked away, ashamed. The humans didn't use pain to break people. They used truth. The file ended. Simple message appeared again. This recording is part of psychological operations. Level 4. Training use only. Kai looked sick. They don't just kill the body. They kill the mind. Captain Selvar was pale. They record every second of it. But the worst was still to come. Fiddy hesitated before opening the next file. Was flagged in red. The screen showed a human soldier lying on a table. His pulse was flat. His chest wasn't moving. A voice off screen said, Experiment 5. Combat. Response, after biological death. The soldier's body twitched. Gas flooded the chamber. The heart monitor beeped once, then twice. Then, rapidly, the man sat up with a violent breath, eyes wide. He fell off the table, gasping, looking around. He tried to speak, but couldn't. A machine voice narrated, Time to reanimation, 47 seconds. Combat memory, intact. Weapon use. Possible? The crew on the Ravaxi Dawn could not believe what they were seeing. They brought him back, Fiddy said. After death. Why? One of the others asked. The machine answered, as if responding. To complete the mission. The human stood, picked up a weapon, and limped toward the door. The file ended. Captain Selvar walked away from the screen. For the first time, he stood at the observation window, looking out into empty space. They don't fear death, he said quietly, because they've already made peace with it. They use it. Turn it into a tool, Kai added, and we've been preparing for a war with soldiers. Captain Selvar nodded, but they're not soldiers. Or something worse. The AI's voice returned. New files unlocked. Field reports. Biological data. This mission. Debriefs. But no one touched the console. For the first time, the aliens understood something awful. Humans didn't just survive the impossible, they planned for it. And if they could come back from death once, they could do it again and again and again. The atmosphere inside the Ravaxi dawn was changing. Lights felt colder. Shadows looked longer. The crew moved slower, speaking in whispers. No one wanted to watch more human footage, but no one could stop. It was like staring into a burning star. You knew it might blind you, but you couldn't look away. The humans were no longer a mystery. They were becoming something else. Something the aliens couldn't understand, and deep inside didn't want to. Fiddy found a new file. This one didn't begin with explosions or running. It opened with silence. A human officer stood in front of a squad of soldiers. His face was hard, not angry, but full of something deeper. Disappointment. He held a tablet in one hand, and his voice was quiet but sharp. "Mission failed," he said, "because one of you broke."
Ow.
The crew watched as the camera panned across the faces of 5 human soldiers. All bruised, all tired. One of them, tall, with blood on his cheek, was shaking. The officer continued, "You turned back. You left your team. You didn't follow orders." The tall man lowered his head. He didn't argue, didn't explain. He knew it was coming. "Dishonored the uniform," the officer said. "You put others in danger. You ran." A long pause. The officer looked at the others. "What happens now?" No one spoke. Then one of the other soldiers stepped forward and raised her weapon. Without speaking, without flinching, she shot the man in the head. The screen blurred for a moment as the body hit the ground. The aliens watching the video gasped. Even hardened warriors on the bridge of the Ravaxi dawn flinched. Fiddy turned her head away. That was one of their own. Jurenka's voice cracked. He was punished by his own team. Captain Salvar stayed silent. His eyes were locked on the screen. The recording didn't end. The officer spoke again. "Cowards. Die quickly, so the rest may live." The squad saluted, then marched away. The screen faded to black. The next file loaded automatically. It was another helmet cam, but this time not during combat. The soldier was sitting inside a small bunker, recording a personal log. His face was young, too young. He looked tired, his eyes empty. "We just lost 3 more today," he said quietly. "The enemy didn't even get them. Frostbite took one. Another slipped into a minefield. Third just stopped breathing. No medics, no support, just us." He looked into the lens. "They say, if we retreat, we get shot. They say dying forward is better than living backward." He laughed, but it wasn't happy. "I don't even know if Earth remembers us out here." Then he turned the camera off. The next clip showed the same soldier. 1 day later, he was charging through fire, carrying a wounded teammate on his back. He was shot twice. He didn't stop. He died 30 seconds later. The screen went dark again. Jurenkai whispered, "Why do they follow such orders?" Captain Salvar finally spoke, "Because they believe something." "What?" Fiddy asked. "What could be worth all this pain?" Salvar looked at her, eyes heavy. "Victory." The next footage was from a courtroom, a battlefield court. 3 officers stood behind a makeshift table. A 4th human, bloodied, 1 arm missing, was on trial. The recording showed he had left his post to save a civilian child. He disobeyed a direct order to hold position. Because of him, 3 soldiers died. The room was quiet. Even the accused looked calm. One officer asked, "Do you regret your decision?" Man replied, "No, I would do it again." The officer looked at the others and gave the sentence, "Execution, immediate." Before the soldier could speak, a gunshot ended his life. Fiddy stared at the screen, horrified. He saved a child. Salvar said nothing. Jurenkai closed his eyes. "They kill for disobedience, even if it's the right thing." Salvar corrected. "They kill for breaking unity. Their strength is in one purpose, one chain of command, one belief. If it breaks, they break, so they never let it break." Another file began. This time, it showed a different side of the same truth. 2 human soldiers dragged a third wounded, screaming in the middle of gunfire. The injured one shouted, "Leave me." "Go," one of them yelled back. "We don't leave our own." He was shot in the leg, fell, crawled. The second one dragged both. Of them, they all died before reaching the evac point. The crew stared at the frozen last frame 3 human bodies lying side by side, hands still gripping each other. Jur Ran-Kai spoke. Slowly. "So, they will kill their own for weakness, but they will die for each other." Selvar's voice was cold. "Exactly." Fiddy asked, "Is that loyalty or madness?" Selvar didn't answer. The AI's voice came through again. "New file detected. Human briefing log. Audio only." A voice played. Calm, confident. "Male. If you want to break a human, you can't. Just kill him. You have to make him believe he failed, that he betrayed his unit. That's our weakness and our power." There was a pause. "We fear one thing more than death, letting each other down." The voice ended. Silence returned to the bridge. No one dared to say a word. Not because they didn't want to, but because they finally understood the humans were not monsters. They were something worse. They were united, and no enemy, no matter how powerful, could ever be ready for that. The command center of the Rovaxi Dawn was colder than before. Not because of any failure in climate systems, but because of what the crew now understood. Humans didn't just fight hard. They didn't just survive. They obeyed without hesitation. They would die without complaint. And now, the aliens were beginning to ask a new question. If humans were this dangerous in training footage, what happened when they fought for real? Captain Selvar sat alone in his chair. His mind had been spinning since the last video ended. Jurenkai approached slowly, holding a report in both hands. "Captain," he said, "we just unlocked a new archive." Selvar didn't move. "More combat?" "Worse," Jurenkai replied. "It's one of ours." The crew gathered again. The screen lit up, not with human faces, but alien ones. Familiar ones. Soldiers from the Zith Empire, the Kratu, Dominion, even elite Varnic ghosts. These were the best the Alliance had ever sent. They were not ordinary troops. These were special recon units sent years ago to Earth's outer systems. Their mission was to infiltrate, observe, and if possible, dash capture. None of them came back. Now the recordings explained why. The footage began with a transmission from a Kra 2 officer. His voice was shaky. "We landed on Moon Deltanine. Outpost confirmed. Scanners show minimal life signs. Proceeding with entry." The screen showed the team moving through a dark hallway. Flashlights lit up walls covered with bullet holes and dried blood. It was quiet. Too quiet, another soldier whispered. "Something's wrong. No defense systems, no power." But they left the lights on. Then came the first scream. Not from the humans, from the recon team. Something in the dark grabbed the last soldier, pulled him into a side tunnel. Blood splattered the wall. The team opened fire in panic. But nothing was there. They moved faster, now terrified, breathing loud. Steps. Unsteady. One by one, they were picked off. Shadows moved behind them. Traps exploded under their feet. Weapons were hacked mid-combat. One alien officer shouted, "They knew we were coming?" This is a hunting ground. The last 30 seconds of the footage showed a Varnic agent invisible to all known scanners, curled in a corner. "Breathing fast. I don't understand," he whispered. "They were supposed to be primitive. We had the numbers, had stealth. But the feed cut out." Static PHIR. I stepped away from the console. "That was 6 of our finest squads, erased without alerting a single human system." Selvar nodded slowly. They never needed to alert anyone. They knew already. Jurenkai opened the next recording. It was a human report. A briefing video. A man in a dark suit stood at a console. His words were calm, cold. "We detected multiple unauthorized entries near Moon Deltanine. 4 hours before arrival. He pressed a button. Dots appeared on a map. Each dot was an alien stealth ship. We let them land. He paused. We let them enter. Another pause. Then we turned the lights off. The room on the Rovaxi Dawn fell completely silent. The video changed to helmet footage. Human special forces waited in shadows. Breathing steady, rifles ready, no fear in their eyes. Officer's voice returned. They came looking for information. What they got instead was a live demonstration. The footage ended. Black screen, no music, no warning. Then a final message blinked across the screen. They came to observe. They became part of the lesson. Fury's voice trembled. Used our best soldiers as bait. Stelvar gripped the edge of his console. Not bait. Examples. Another file opened without prompt. This one was a transmission. Alien. One of the captured soldiers, still alive, speaking into a stolen radio. If anyone hears this, do not follow. They know everything. They watch. Even their own dead. Their silence is not weakness. It is design. Every step you take, they've already taken twice. Then a sound cut through the feed. Human voice. Thanks for the message. Shot static. The aliens aboard Rovaxi Dawn stared at each other, pale and shaken. Jurenkai looked at Captain Stelvar. How many more did we send? Stelvar didn't answer, but his silence said everything. They had sent hundreds. They had never heard from any of them again, and now they knew why. The humans didn't just fight to win. They waited in the dark and let their enemies come to them. Captain Stelvar didn't sleep anymore. None of them did. The crew of the Rovaxi Dawn took turns watching the human footage, but it never left their minds, even when the screens were off. They had seen death before. They had seen war. But they had never seen it like this, so focused, so cold, so patient. They had sent recon squads, sent elite troops, sent spies, unreturned. And now they were starting to realize a darker truth. Humans didn't just win battles. They rewrote how war was understood. Jurenka was the one who found the next file. He didn't even call the others. He just opened it alone in the silent control room, eyes flicking between warnings. The file had a long label, Earth Forces. Combat Evaluation Protocol, Tier 3, Basic Unit Readiness. He read it twice. Then he called for Stelvar and Fitty. When they all arrived, he pressed play. The screen showed a large facility, open land, mountains in the distance, cold air, and sharp winds. Human soldiers were being dropped from helicopters in full gear, helmets recording everything. There were 40 of them, moving quickly, not in chaos, but in patterns. They communicated with short words, hand signals, perfect discipline. Explosions sounded nearby. Gunfire. Drones circled above. Live fire exercise? Fury asked. No, Jurenkai said slowly. Read the top. Stelvar leaned in. Training. The word felt heavy. They kept watching. These weren't full-grown soldiers. With ranks and medals, some looked too young to be in war. But they fought like veterans. They moved through simulated towns under attack. Enemy drones were firing live rounds. Walls exploded. Medics screamed for cover. One recruit was hit. She screamed, clutched her leg, and fell. The others didn't run to help her, not right away. One of them threw smoke, another dragged her out, another kept returning fire. It was like instinct.
No one had to give orders. They had practiced pain.
Another squad member lost an arm in the blast. He didn't scream, didn't panic. He stood, clamped a strap on his shoulder to stop the bleeding, picked up a rifle with one hand, and kept firing. The aliens were speechless. Why are they pushing them so far? Fitty whispered. Then the instructor's voice came through a speaker. In the video, this is Tier 3. You break here, you don't make it to Tier 4. Keep moving. Stelvar turned to Jurenkai. What is Tier 4? Jurenkai didn't respond. The screen showed the training end. Only 12 of the 40 recruits finished. Some were being carried. One was unconscious. None of them smiled. The instructor simply nodded and said, "Next phase, cold resistance training. Night drop. No supplies. No backup. You have 72 hours to reach the beacon." Salvar gripped the side of the console. "They're still going?" Fiddy said nothing. Her claws were shaking. Another file unlocked automatically. It was from a separate program, something called Ghost Protocol Development. The file was older, blurry, but still clear enough. It showed 3 humans dropped into a live combat zone. Real enemies. Real weapons. The humans had no armor, just black suits and knives. The mission: survive 48 hours behind enemy lines without being seen. Cell VAR muttered, "They're insane." But what they saw next wasn't insanity. It was horror. The 3 humans didn't just survive. They hunted. They set traps. They killed without sound. In the end, 27 enemies were found dead. Not one gunshot had been heard. Only 1 human made it out. When asked what happened to the other 2, he replied, "They made too much noise." The aliens on the Rovaxi Dawn watched in silence. "Is this normal?" Fiddy asked. Jurenkai checked. "The date of this is basic clearance. These are early files." Salvar's eyes narrowed. "Then the ones we saw earlier?" Fiddy realized the truth. They weren't war heroes, they were trainees. The files they feared, the battles that haunted their thoughts, were not even official wars. Not high-level missions. Not veteran squads. Just exercises. Just tests. Just the beginning. Another message appeared on the screen. Level 6 complete. Tier 4 files locked. Authorization required. Omega Black. Salvar stared at it. "What's after Tier 4? He asked. Aloud, no one answered, because deep down they knew. If this was only training, they weren't ready for what came next. And maybe no one in the galaxy ever would be. The crew of the Rovaxi Dawn barely spoke anymore. The reports were delayed. Navigation logs were ignored. Even the ship's AI had begun to pause before speaking, as if afraid to break the silence. It wasn't just fear now. It was something deeper. Shame. Regret. Because the more the aliens watched the recordings, the more they realized they hadn't just underestimated humans. They had never understood war at all. Captain Salvar hadn't left the command chamber in 2 days. He sat in the same chair, staring at the same screen. Jurenkai and Fiddy stood nearby, silent as a new message blinked across the interface. Authorization confirmed. Accessing Real Combat Archive. Operation Ash March. Fury's hands hesitated over the controls. "Captain, this isn't training. This is real." Salvar didn't blink. "Play it." The screen lit up. It opened with fire. "Your city's in flames, sky filled with falling debris, ships burning, screaming. This wasn't a remote outpost or test ground. It was a real world and Earth colony, deep in the dark zones, under full assault. The enemy? Unknown. But the enemy wasn't human. The recording came from the helmet of a ground commander. His voice was calm, professional. Status report: civilians evacuated. Colony defense grid offline. We are last line. He looked around. 24 soldiers stood with him. Their faces were covered in ash. Some were bleeding, none were panicking. A younger soldier asked, "Sir, we holding position?" The commander replied, "No, we're pushing forward." The aliens watching on Rovaxi Dawn stared in disbelief. The humans were outnumbered. Their air support was gone. The reinforcements were hours away, but they didn't retreat. They charged. The enemy was monstrous, 8-limbed beasts with built-in plasma cannons and bone armor. Their numbers were in the thousands. They moved fast, close, and deadly. They fought like machines, but screamed like wolves. Jurenkai flinched as he saw a soldier tackle a creature twice her size, stabbing it through the eye with her last blade. She died seconds later, crushed, but not before pulling a grenade, pinning with her teeth and taking 2 more down. Another human lost both legs to an energy blast. He crawled into the path of an enemy tank and wired explosives to its core. He never made it out. The aliens watching couldn't understand. "Why don't they run?" Fiddy whispered. They don't run, Salvar replied. They finish. Footage continued. Half the human squad was gone. The commander was wounded, arm burned, helmet cracked. But his voice never shook. He radioed command. We're not holding the line. We're the line. And then the humans did something no one expected. They began singing a raw, ancient chant. A war song that had no rhythm, no melody. It was not beautiful. It was not peaceful. It was heavy, angry, defiant. The aliens felt something rise in their chests. It's not fear, dread, because this was not strategy. This was willpower, something beyond. Orders. Beyond training, the humans weren't. It's fighting to win. They were fighting because stopping was never an option. The last 10 minutes of the footage showed something terrifying. The enemy retreated. They outnumbered the humans. 20-2-1, but they retreated, and when command asked why, a message was intercepted. Out. One alien general, speaking in panic, said, "We faced no army. We faced death itself, and it wore a human face." The recording ended with the surviving 6 humans planting their broken banner into the ground. Their commander looked directly into his camera and said, "Message to any who watched. This is what happens when you come for us." Then the footage. Cut, no music. No glory. Just black. No one on the Relentless Dawn spoke for a full minute. Then Jurankai finally whispered, "They fight like they've already died once. And don't care if they die again." Fiddy stepped back. All of that. And that wasn't even Earth's best forces. Salvar nodded slowly. No, that was just one colony squad, outnumbered. No fleet. No backup. Jurankai asked if that was a last stand. What happens when humanity actually declares war? The AI answered before anyone else could. Warning. Next unlocked files include full-scale retaliation protocol from Earth Central. Command. Captain Salvar turned to the others. Then we've only seen the beginning. And across the galaxy, anyone who dared to listen began to prepare for the end. The lights in the command chamber of the Relentless Dawn were now kept dim at all hours. No one requested it. No order was given. It just happened because no one wanted to see their own reflections anymore. The fear was deeper now, not just of humans, but of what the humans had yet to unleash. They had watched the training. They had watched the ambushes. They had seen what a single human squad could do when abandoned and surrounded. But now they were about to see what happened. When Earth was angry, the AI pinged again. New file detected. Operation Clean Horizon. Full retaliation protocol. Earth Central Command. Captain Salvar looked over at Fury and Jurankai. Neither moved. The room was silent. Even the engines hummed softer. Selvar finally spoke. "Open it." The screen lit up not from a soldier's helmet cam or drone feed, but from a satellite. It showed a hostile alien fleet hovering above a human colony, World War VII. These weren't small-time raiders. This was an organized high-tech strike from a powerful regional empire. Over 200 warships, tens of thousands of troops, heavy artillery platforms. They sent a warning to Earth. Didn't respond. Not with a message, not with diplomacy, but with a signal. 3 hours later, the retaliation arrived. The aliens on the Relentless Dawn leaned forward, and what they saw made their blood run cold. Out of subspace, Earth's fleet dropped in, not massive in number, not flashy in design, just silent, dark, and efficient. 50 ships, cold steel, no bright flags, no warning shots. The video switched. 2 interior feeds. Earth commanders gave orders with voices so calm it sounded like weather reports. Targets locked. Confirm burn range. Execute protocol Iron Rain. Then it began. They didn't aim for enemy ships first. They aimed for the planet. Tactical weapons. They're designed not to destroy, but to erase. One by one, key installations, orbital stations, troop barracks, communication towers gone. Not with flashy explosions, but with clean, silent impacts that cut through matter like a scalpel. The alien fleet began to panic. Some tried to flee, some turned to fight. The humans were already ahead. Salvar watched, his eyes wide. They predicted every escape route. Whispered they herded them. The fleeing ships were led into trap zones. Earth's stealth ships had been waiting in silence. For days, they knew the enemy would retreat, and they built their plan backward from the retreat. Nowhere was safe. The last part of the video showed a captured enemy command cruiser. Human Marines breached the bridge. The alien general in charge raised his hands in surrender. The Earth officer responded, "You sent a message? We received it. This is ours." Then the feed cut. The final result flashed on screen. Enemy fleet. Neutralized. Casualties. 0 Earth. Mission time. 47 minutes. Fiddy stepped back from the screen. It took them less than an hour. Salvar stared at the screen. No, it took them decades to plan, to prepare, to build soldiers who don't. Question. Fleets that don't hesitate. Minds that don't flinch. Jurinkai added, and they only sent 50 ships. Salvar nodded, because they didn't need more. Another screen lit up an intercepted broadcast, not from Earth, but from one of the retreating enemy ships moments before destruction. The alien captain screamed. It wasn't a military. It was a machine. A cold, thinking machine that wore human faces. Then static. Another file auto-opened. Human command debrief. One general stood alone in a room. His words were cold. "You attack our people. We won't negotiate. We won't ask why. We won't threaten." He looked into the camera. "We'll erase your reasons." And he turned away and the feed ended. The Relentless Dawn crew stood still. Unsure of what to say? They had believed humanity was a threat. A dangerous new species. But now they understood something far worse. Humanity wasn't rising. It was already above them. Watching, planning, and choosing mercy. Only when it served a purpose, and when it didn't. They didn't burn their enemies. They erased them. The emergency meeting was called at Level 0 clearance. Only the highest leaders of the Galactic Coalition were allowed to attend. Not a single representative sent a proxy. They all came in person, even the Varnik, who hadn't left their homeworlds. In over a century, even the hollow-eyed emissaries of the Kratu Dominion, who once swore never to stand under the same roof as their rivals. But now, none of that mattered, because Earth was no longer a species to study. It was a decision to make. Inside the chamber, a long table glowed with stars every known world marked. But all eyes were locked on one system. Sol. Earth's system. A small dot on the map. Still pulsing, still quiet. And yet it had silenced everything. High Chancellor Brevik of the Tharn was the first to speak. "We were wrong," he said. "Every file recovered from the Relentless Dawn confirms it. They never showed us their true forces. The retaliation at Vor 7 was not even their main fleet." Ambassador Zeal of the Zith Empire narrowed her eyes. "You saying they sent a reserve group? It wasn't their full response?" Brevik turned, activated a hologram, and showed the Earth's protocol logs. Code Black wasn't triggered. Only gray-level assets were used. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Gray level was mid-tier, not even a war-level response. Jurinkai stood beside the projection. All previous footage, all the horrors. All the unstoppable actions we witnessed were performed by soldiers below Earth's top classifications. Not special forces, not planet breakers, just professionals. Another representative whispered, "Then what does Earth send when it is serious?" The room didn't answer. They couldn't. Chancellor Brevik continued, "We must consider one terrifying truth. Earth has been at peace. Everything we saw, the training, the responses, even the retaliation, was Earth on defense." He tapped a file. It opened slowly. Inside was a document recovered from the final cache aboard. The Relentless Dawn, it was called. Protocol Enlight Earth Offensive Doctrine. Jurinkai hesitated before reading it aloud. Phase 1. Remove all enemy communications before declaration. Phase 2. Strike not where the enemy is strongest, but where they believe they are safest. Phase 3. Remove symbols. Rewrite memory. Break the name before you break the fleet. Another line blinked under it. If war is declared by Earth, war ends. The ambassadors sat frozen. That wasn't a slogan, that was a plan. Brevik leaned forward. He believed Earth to be volatile, unstable, emotion-driven. We assumed that meant they were reckless, but we were wrong, Zeal whispered. They're not emotional. Brevik nodded. They're deliberate. Another representative elderly, blind in one eye, stood. I was there when our empire faced extinction during the Orion Split Wars. We fought creatures that melted metal with sound. But even then, I did not feel what I feel now. Someone asked him, "What is it?" He looked around the chamber. Helplessness. Jurankai activated the last recovered audio from the Rovaxi Dawn. It was short, just one voice, human, calm, and final. We don't need to scream. We don't need to roar. Because we don't fight for attention. We fight for closure. The room went quiet, and then the fear turned into something else. Panic. Some ambassadors demanded Earth be banned from interstellar travel. Others wanted negotiations opened immediately. A few whispered about something darker. Preemptive action. But one voice cut through it all. Var. He had come as a witness. Now he stood as the one who saw the truth. If you attack Earth, he said slowly, you won't defeat them. He looked around the room. You'll remind them. The chamber fell into absolute silence, and every world leader finally understood humanity had never started a galactic war. But if pushed, A would be the ones to end it. The diplomatic ship Glasswing arrived at the edge of Coalition space without a beacon, without clearance, and without weapons. Normally, any unknown vessel entering unmarked would be destroyed immediately. But not this one. Because this ship carried someone who had disappeared over 12 years ago, a sleeper agent, sent to Earth under deep cover to live among the humans, study them, learn their ways, and prepare the galaxy for their weakness. Now he had returned. And he was broken. The creature that stepped out of the ship didn't match the strong, proud biosignature he once held. His back was hunched. His skin was pale. His eyes trembled at light. He didn't walk like a spy, shuffled like a ghost. The Coalition's high command rushed to question him. They needed intel, coordinates, military flaws. The agent gave none. He just asked for one thing, to speak, to everyone. One final message. To all species watching, they agreed. He was placed in the Galactic Hall. Over 4 billion viewers tuned in across space. Entire fleets paused their movements. Planetary governments turned their skies dark to broadcast his words. The alien stood alone at the podium. He did not bring charts. He brought silence. Then he spoke. I was sent to Earth to observe. I lived. Among them, I wore a false name, a false body. I ate with them. I trained with them. I even laughed with them. He paused, voice trembling, and then I saw them bleed. And I saw them stand back up. And I saw what they do. When one of their own is taken, he looked around the silent room. They don't rage. They don't scream. They remember, shook his head slowly. They don't seek revenge. Seek balance. And when they strike, it is not for pain. It is for memory. For the fallen. And they do not stop until the math is complete. He placed one shaking hand on his chest. I was there when their city was attacked by an unknown ship. I watched them mourn. For a week they were quiet, and then they erased the attacker's species name from every archive they owned, and I have not seen or heard of that species since. People began whispering. The agent raised his hand. You think they are soft because they smile? Because they dance? Because they build art and music. You think these are weaknesses? They are not. They are containment. Because what they are hiding behind all of that, he looked directly into the camera now, is something you will not survive. Took a breath. Don't look at their armies. Look at their children. I watched a 12-year-old human break another child's nose knot for bullying, but for insulting her brother's honor and the adults. They didn't panic. They taught her to aim better next time. He closed his eyes. I watched them carry the body of a comrade through the freezing mountains. They could have left him, but they didn't. Because you don't leave a name behind, they said, even if that name is cold, even if that name is already dead. The chamber was silent. No one moved. Then he said the words that changed everything. You didn't discover humans? He opened his eyes again, now calm. They allowed themselves to be found. And then he stepped away from the podium. Jurenkai, watching from the Rovaxi dawn in orbit, whispered, "He's not warning us." Captain Selvar answered, "He's confessing." On hundreds of worlds, leaders looked at one another. Realizing the truth, the humans were not preparing for war. They were already ready. They were just waiting for the moment. The stars forgot what they were. And when that moment came, they would remind the galaxy who wrote the final chapter of every war. Deep within the starless regions beyond the charted zones, something began to move. Signal, old and slow, rippled through forgotten space. For centuries, it had been quiet. Trees. The ancients had stayed silent. They were the first. Those who built the gate systems, who shaped galaxies, who vanished before most species were born. Now they spoke again. The signal reached the coalition's highest frequencies. It wasn't coded. It wasn't hidden. It was a message meant to be heard by all. They were not meant to survive. The voice wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. But every being who heard it felt their bones freeze, because the ancients never lied. They never warned. And they had never once commented on a younger species until now. A special meeting was called. All major powers joined. Even Earth sent observers, but said nothing. As always, they watched. The message played again, this time with added context. A second signal, buried under the first, unlocked coordinates. It pointed to a data vault older than memory, hidden beneath the collapsed core of a neutron star. No one had ever found it because no one was supposed to. Until now. The Rovaxi Dawn was the first to arrive. Captain Selvar led the retrieval team. Jurenkai stayed behind to monitor signals. Fiddy stood ready with translation systems. The vault was opened. Inside were images, millions of them, of Earth, from before it had Spalagish, from before it had language, from before it had life. Jurenkai whispered, "What is this?" Selvar replied, "Observation logs." From the beginning, the files showed Earth under surveillance by the ancients. Monitored, watched, measured, it was a failed planet, full of chaos, unstable weather, hostile biology. It was abandoned, a world too wild to control. The logs continued. Thousands of entries. Every major extinction event, every near reset of life, each one marked by a note. Reset failed, species adapted. And then one final entry, dated thousands of years ago. Just for words. Project Earth? Containment broken. Fiddy stepped back. Fidisa warned evolving naturally. Selvar nodded slowly. Bits were escaping. The ancients had built Earth to trap something. Maybe not a monster. Maybe something worse, an idea. A type of mind. Something no code could predict. No math could explain. It had teeth. But it also had memory. And when it suffered, it remembered. And when it grew, it did not stop. One last file played, visual blurry. Flickering, corrupted by age but still clear enough to send chills through the room, showed the ancients' final counsel. Their last decision before vanishing. If they reach the stars, we hide. The screen shut off. Selvar stood in silence. Jurenkai whispered, "They didn't go extinct." Fury finished the thought. They ran. Every theory the galaxy had ever written was wrong. Humanity wasn't a newcomer. It wasn't the youngest species. It was the oldest problem. And the moment it learned to reach out into the stars flinched. On Earth, humans received the same files. They didn't respond. They didn't send fleets. They didn't threaten. They just watched, and then quietly, slowly, began to prepare. Because they too now knew the truth. They were never supposed to make it this far, and now that they had, nothing in the galaxy could stop what was coming next. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Every species, every empire, every hidden corner of the stars now spoke in hushed tones. About one name, Earth. What was once just another planet with noise and smoke had become the most feared and studied world. In existence, governments collapsed, alliances broke, fleets were pulled back from the edges, and yet no human ship had attacked, no fleet had invaded. It didn't need to. The fear alone had done the work, but the humans were not waiting. Anymore, they were moving, quietly, calmly, with purpose. On the outer rim of coalition space, a new human station appeared. It wasn't military, no weapons, no soldiers. It was a beacon broadcasting a message in every language. We are not your enemy, unless you want us to be. Another appeared, then 10 more, then 100. Crossed trade lanes, ancient gates, orbiting dead worlds. Not one fired a shot. Not one carried a flag. Just presence, steady, unshaken presence. Inside the Galactic Council, panic turned to argument. Some demanded immediate defense buildups. Others begged for peace. But the oldest ones, the quiet ones, said nothing. They had seen the ancient files. They remembered the warning from the ancients. And they knew that if the humans had come this far, it was already too late. Jurankai stood once more on the deck of the Ravaxi Dawn. The crew had changed. The ship had changed. But he remained. And now he watched as Earth's first true colony ship, a massive, silent starcraft, slipped past the edge of the galaxy. Not heading toward war. Heading beyond. Fury's voice crackled in. They're not claiming territory. No, Jurankai replied. They're leaving it behind. The human ship did not look like a warship. It looked like a spear made of stars. Long, endless, full of light and shadow. It didn't aim its weapons. It didn't send a message. It simply moved. Past the edge of the known. Map. Past the oldest coordinates. Past where the ancients once fled. And then it vanished. Selvar's voice came through the comes from the council hall. Do you know where? They're going, Jurankai answered without hesitation. Forward. There was silence on the line. Then Selvar said, We tried to stop them. We tried to control them. We tried to understand them, Jurankai added. But they were never made to be understood. Back on Earth, no parades were held. No grand statements were made. The planet was quiet, peaceful, focused, not on defense, but on becoming more. And the humans knew now, without doubt, that the stars were not their cage. They were only the first gate. A final message from Earth. Was recorded and broadcast on every open channel. A human child's voice, soft, curious. We used to dream about the stars. But dreams change. Signal ended. Nothing more followed. And across the galaxy, every empire understood. Humanity had no interest in ruling the galaxy. They had outgrown it, and now they were coming for whatever came next.